Okay, so minimum wage thing. I talked to some servers yesterday about how the new changes were going to affect them through their paychecks and their livelihoods. One of the things that was surprising, first of all, even though this is something that's coming in January, they were completely unaware of this 48-hour thing, and they were completely unaware of the personal emergency leave stuff. They did hear something in the news about the minimum wage going up, but when I told them how much, and for servers on how much that's lower than the standard rate, they were surprised, and they went, "Oh, well, it might be nice." Well, no, like I got shrugged shoulders all around.
It's because they don't rely on their hourly wage; they rely on the commission that they get off the tables, right? So a jump in. I think the initial jump is going to be a couple of bucks, and then it just like they bank their paychecks, right? So a lot of them just that money goes in their account. They're hoping that their check is high enough to cover their cell phone bill, their rent, their bills, whatever. And then if they're part-time, they're using their gratuities for fun time. If they're full-time, then they're obviously banking some of that as well. But they've made so much little, or that's not the right way to say it. They've made less than for so long that it's just a little bit of a supplement for them. And they go into their account and they're like, "Oh yeah, it was payday." It's crazy to me, where I'm just like, is it payday yet? Is it payday yet? And they're just like, "Oh, wait a minute. There's money in my account." Super crazy to me.
I know. So how, on the management side then, because you're going to have to make changes, obviously. I mean, you're managing in a franchise location. So a franchise location, of course, you're going to have some rules and prices and everything else set to you probably by head office. But you have to make your own decisions now on, okay, how am I going to change the scheduling? So what do you think is going to be the major changes just in, are you looking more of cutting back hours or just relying on the price increases?
Well, we're going to have to, it's going to be a bit of both, obviously. So if people think that there won't be price increases, not just in the hospitality industry, but everywhere, they're sadly mistaken. So there will be price increases because we have to, because our goods are going up as well as our labor going up. But what my first thought, or my first actions, are probably going to be to eliminate some of the lesser skilled positions. So you're going to see fewer and fewer dishwashers. You're going to see fewer and fewer hostesses. Can you get away with not having a hostess on what you think is a quieter night? Because you have servers who can grab the door and answer the phone. You have cooks who can do dishes, but hostesses can't take tables and dishwashers can't cook. So now we're relying on getting our better paid staff to do more work. So maybe eliminating positions, but creating more hours for the ones that are already there and maybe already positioned well. It's a crazy increase to me. It's not just 50 cents. Like, it's not just 25 cents. I mean, if you were to go to the grocery store and you were to buy some steak and then go to the grocery store a week later and it's $3 more, you'd be like, well, wait a second, I guess it's pork again. Like, these are, it's huge. And it's not just the minimum wage increase, it's all the other silent increases that the employer has to absorb. So the CPP goes up and the WSIB goes up. So every time wage goes up,
franchise fees go up.
Go up. Royalties go up.
Your monthly advertising budget or whatever is also based on a percentage of your sales, which means, right?
Yeah. So I mean, it's more than just the $2, the $3, the $4, because there's all those hidden costs. There's, and it's a bit of a tax grab. So now the average employer is now making more. So the government's collecting more income tax. I mean, it's just, we're so heavily taxed in Ontario. I can't speak for the rest of the country, but I know Ontario, we have so many forms of government and everybody is taxing us. So that lower paid or minimum wage worker is now getting a bump in their salary, and so the government's getting more money. Have people forgotten about that?
Yeah. Maybe they don't see it on the other side of things. It's interesting. The only other province that's going through the same thing is Alberta.
Oh, really?
And I'm going to be there at the end of September. So I'm hoping to talk to people there to see. I don't think, because right now I think their minimum wage is slightly higher than it is here in Ontario. So their increase is not as drastic, but it's still pretty drastic.
And it's just, and we don't begrudge people needing or wanting more per hour. We really don't. It's that we need to compensate somehow. So it always comes back to relativity, as far as I'm concerned. When a guest comes in and they think that, having a lamb shank or salmon or steak is already maybe a little bit more, now it's going to be more because we have to, as costs go up, we have to compensate. It's like every other expense in the restaurant business, So protein took a hike in increase, I think 2 years ago, and burgers went up. They went up like $1. And people who go out all the time, they notice that. So they notice their average check at a restaurant used to be $25, it's now $28. So it can't be any different. When you go to a retail store, prices go up. But you go to a restaurant, you're like, wait a minute, why? Why? But why is it okay when you go to, Sears or, any place? It's always, their prices go up. But at a restaurant, it's like, wait a minute now.
Now you're messing with my Friday night.
Right. And you're like, am I paying for anyway. Yeah.
So are you concerned? So 2 questions I have. One, are you concerned with how it's going to affect, not so much sales or whatever, but I'm kind of thinking about maybe people going out a little bit less. Do you think people are going to hold back on their tipping amount? Or they're going to look for more reasons to hold back?
It's possible because the average guest might be thinking, well, wait a minute, why do I have to compensate the server? But that's been an age-old battle. So now their guest check is going to be higher because, actually, no, their guest check won't be higher, sorry. They may be thinking, well, wait a minute, that guy just got $3 an hour raise, so I don't have to tip him or her. But it's for a server really only over 3 hours. I mean, they might be making $9 more. So it's going to be difficult on the server if the guest starts to think that way. I don't think they will. I don't anticipate that because I think
not, because we the conversation I had with the servers yesterday about tipping. The number one thing that they wish that their guests would understand is the whole tipping out process.
Yeah,
realizing that $3 that you left there after you went, you had a coffee and a salad or something at lunch, isn't usually just for them. That there's usually a percentage that's actually withheld and given to other people. And just for you, so you can be aware in your planning purposes. The interesting comment that I got back from the servers when I said that we were having this increase, and I said, is it going to make a difference for you? Well, no, not really. You know what? I think the guys who are not making the tips in the restaurant need it more, and the number one person that they said deserves the extra money is the dishwasher.
Yeah, they do some nasty stuff.
I know.
Yeah. It's hard work.
It seems to be this, and it's one of those things that I think I want to do it for a few. I seriously want to just go, as much as I've washed dishes and in the big machines and everything else, I don't think people actually realize what kind of job that even just dishwashers. I think that's one of those things that dishwashers, janitors, even just some server things. They were telling me stories yesterday about how, they can have a kid's birthday party and they basically can't take any other tables because they're spending an hour cleaning up after the birthday party.
It's crazy. Yeah. Even large parties, even older people parties and stuff like that too. But the dishwasher, you're right. They end up doing some, they do a lot of heavy lifting. Often they're putting orders away, and you can't just take a pan and put it in the dishwasher. It needs to be scrubbed, no matter what the commercials tell you on TV. It is it's an industry, so it's an industry thing. So there's a lot of scrubbing, and hey, can you do this for me? And hey, can you do that for me? And
so it's going to be a catch-22 for them when you think about it. So the minimum wage is going up, so they're finally getting their due.
Right, but now we're thinking about maybe we only need them on Fridays and Saturdays.
We basically they're at the bottom of the totem pole.
Yeah.
So now that they're getting a break.
Yeah.
Right?
We may I'm not 100% sure that we're going to do that, but it is one of the preemptive things that has gone through my head. There is another thing that scares me about the minimum wage increase, and that is that we have a lot of we do a lot of scratch cooking, and I think I'm proud of that. And I don't know how we're not going to be able to not source other products. So if I just use, like one example is we use a whole chicken. We bring in a fresh chicken, never frozen. We prepare that, we poach it, we cool it, we debone it, we skin it, we break it down, and that goes in on your nachos. And it sounds so extravagant to put something like that on a nacho, but that's what we do. But can we afford to pay somebody to come in first thing in the morning and poach that chicken? Are we getting credit for the fact that there's a lot of work that goes into something that just goes in your taco or, you know, on your Cobb salad? Do people realize the background that chicken had? We didn't just take a chicken breast and grill it. That's fantastic. Mm-hmm. But so do we have to eliminate stuff like that? Do we source out our awesome pastry? Do we source that out? Because, you know, can we eliminate 5 hours, 6 hours a week of just rolling out pastry? I don't want to do that. I'm just saying that might come down the pipe. And I think, I hope we don't go back to, and when I say we, I mean the industry in general, do we go back to more processed foods?
No, I still remember the days back when I was out shopping and stuff for my business and going to big, you know, food shows. And all of these sales reps are all lined up, and every one of them is trying to pitch to me jugs of pre-made salad dressing, right, and, you know, and jugs of tartar sauce and jugs of mayonnaise.
Right.
And when I would tell them I make my own salad dressing, they were like, "What? That's just crazy." And I said, "No, because this way I only make as much as I need." Right? Like it's, or I can change it as I need to, right, or change an ingredient or a seasoning as I need to, as opposed to doing the pre-made stuff. But there was a large amount, and I'm finding that more and more as I'm talking to restaurant owners and chefs, even here locally in Northern Ontario. They're getting more away from that, and I don't know if it's driven by the guests who are now asking for it.
Right.
But it's a little bit healthier, it's less processed foods, but it's more expensive.
It's more expensive, and it's more labor intensive, right? So when we think of, you know, what can we do to cut back? So right now, like we cut our own bacon. That's crazy to me that other people, no, I love that we cut our own bacon. Yes. Don't get me wrong, but do we get credit for that? Do people coming into my restaurant know that we've taken, you know, a pork belly and we've cut that bacon into
Marketing
slabs?
101, I would be putting little signs on all of your tables with little fun facts on every single table. Well, did you know that? Like a little trivia started thing. All the restaurants out there, if you're listening, I think that's a cool thing. If you do something like, I'm going to be interviewing Mark about making his own honey. Yeah. As much as he's telling them, I think it needs to be. Know. I don't think people know that the honey that's in that dressing that he made, he cultivated
bees. Yeah, that's crazy.
I know, that's fun.
Yeah, so I mean, but then how much stuff can you have on the table but is the average consumer or guest coming into a franchised restaurant expecting that? So do they want to see all that stuff on their table? Do they I would love to be able to, do you care? So one of the things that we started back in it starts way, you know, we now have like all Canadian beef. We have all Canadian pork. We support Canadian chicken farmers. Our beef is fresh, never frozen, raised without use of antibiotics. I mean, do they care? I want to know. I'm making notes of that
as we speak because I thought because I have access to a large group of food fanatics.
There you go.
Via various websites, so I can put out an anonymous survey saying,
there you go.
If it's going to affect your bottom line. The price of what you're eating. Do you care?
Do you care?
How much is it? If we do things by hand or source out proper, healthy, local ingredients, is it going to make or break your decision on where you're eating?
Perfect. So there's all kinds of different studies, and you can skew studies, and you can do all that stuff. But I think that people care about the environment, and I think that, you know, for some people it's just in the back of their heads. And so if they can go to a restaurant that's sort of supporting that, then maybe that's their way of supporting it. But I just wonder sometimes if they really know that all the work that went into making that Guinness steak and mushroom pie, or, you know, the fact that beef was never frozen and that you had a prep cook there at 9:00 in the morning. We froze the butter so that we could grate the butter to make that pastry. I mean, there's people that don't even do that at home. No. You know, and we're doing that in our back kitchen. We have these slabs. But anyway, I don't want to source out those ingredients. Don't get me wrong, but if it gets super expensive, you have to compensate.
That's right. And so I think that's one of those things that when people, I say people, as in the end consumer, is looking at the new menus that are being put in front of them with slightly higher prices.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that through conversations like what we're having and going forward, that they're realizing that that price increase is not just to pay more to that server who brought you the food.
Exactly.
There's a lot of other hands that have basically touched that process along the way, and a lot of them are affected by this minimum wage hike. And so there's a lot of people that restaurant owners and managers have to pay to get to that same spot.
Absolutely.
And and that price increase, if there's no changes made on the other side, where there's scheduling changes and hours and everything else, that price increase could have even been more.
Right. It could have. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a misconception too that if you're a restaurant owner and your restaurant is doing well, or the public thinks that it's doing well, or the perception is that it's doing well, is that you're making money hand over fist. They're just regular Joes. They have mortgages. They have car payments. Like, there's very few of us in the community that are living extravagant lifestyles.
What, you don't have a summer home?
No, actually I don't.
I saw something on one of the shows this morning talking about, I think it was one of the late night shows, but they were laughing about this. What, you don't have a summer home?
Yeah.
Doesn't everybody have a summer home?
You know, like, I make car payments and I have outrageous hydro bills at home and I have mortgages and stuff like that. And I'm not even an owner. I'm a general manager, but I know the owners, and I know many, many other owners, and I know that they're not vacationing in Europe on a regular basis and stuff like that, unless they've been at it for 30 years, and then they deserve it. You know, they've been able to put money away and stuff like that. They're not making money off the backs of these, minimum wage people. If they're successful as a whole, then that's cool. But, we experienced something in a Northern Ontario city that I used to work in a long time ago. One of the mills went on strike, and it didn't affect right away, but down later on, maybe 3 or 4 weeks later, we noticed that we were still busy, but we noticed that they were trading down. So they're still going out to eat, because we are a society that likes to treat ourselves. And it's just become normal to go out and have a meal in a restaurant. But we noticed that we weren't selling as many, say, full racks of ribs. We were selling more half racks of ribs. We weren't selling as many steaks. We were selling lots of burgers. So they're going out, but they're trading down.
Or they're ordering one course as opposed to two. Right.
Or there's maybe only 2 cocktails at the table when maybe there would be 3.
Oh, the shame
I know, And, you're trying to, by the way, it's always better to get a bottle of wine.
That's going to be
a whole other story.
Podcast, yes.
But we did notice that, and so when it comes to that kind of stuff, we're happy that they're coming to our place, even if their guest check average is lower, because at the end of the day, it's all about getting guests through the door, right? And they have so many choices, and so many at any given time on a Friday night. There's how many thousands of people with their wallets in hand that are waiting to go out and dine. So. If they go to your restaurant, be happy that they had a burger. When times are better, they're having prime rib, they're having, the more expensive dishes.
So
but
yes, as long as they're coming.
As long as they're coming.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I think that's one of the things here is that's why I'm so nervous. Because one of my goals, as you know, is, it sounds awful, I want people to eat out more. When I travel overseas and I'm into larger centers, nobody's at home. Everybody's out. They basically will go to work. And as soon as work is finished, they're actually meeting friends or family members immediately after they get off their shift. Even if it's just to have a quick cocktail out on a patio table or a coffee at a cafe, even with some coworkers afterwards, they may or may not continue the evening and go for dinner. But everyone's socializing. And it's just a different culture, and it's a community thing, and people are catching up with people they haven't seen in a while, and that happens every day, all day. And it's different when I come home, where I'm kind of looking around for people. I'm happy to dine by myself. I do it quite often. But I find that I'm going out, and at certain times of the day, yes, things are empty. It's a beautiful day, a patio's empty.
Yeah.
And I think it's just because here in Northern Ontario, and not just the city, we're so spread out. And that was one of the reasons I started that whole foodie group or something, that I'm hoping that it encourages people that they see, oh, you know, I keep seeing this one restaurant making the top 5 every so often.
Gotta
I haven't
go.
been there.
Gotta go. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's just going to be like, I need to go and tick that box or go and try it.
Yeah.
So it may encourage somebody who only goes out once a week that, you know what, I'm not going to go out for dinner twice this week. I might go out for lunch this week, and which is fine.
Yeah.
But I'm so concerned that if costs go up, can they afford to do that second outing during the week, right? Or are they going to second guess it? So I think it's going to be on how the message is delivered. And I still think that, yes, pricing is a big issue, but I really do think that service is going to be one of the things that's going to differentiate stuff. Because most across the board, especially in not just franchises, but a burger price is pretty close to, if you're going into an actual sit-down full-service restaurant, I'm not talking fast food.
Yeah.
But a burger around, they're usually pretty close.
I would think so, yeah.
So your service level, if your service level is better and everybody's burger increases, odds are you're going to get more business than the other ones are.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. Of course it does.
So it's a matter of the guest experience and how much fun they're having and if their friends are going and all that kind of thing. Yeah. So I think it's just going to weight things differently as opposed to eliminate one or the other.
Well, it also could be a wait and see too, right? So sometimes these, you know, maybe it doesn't affect anybody at all, but you need to be proactive. And you need to be on top of these things and get out in front of it and all those cliches. But we don't begrudge somebody making more per hour. It just seems like so much, so quickly. That's one of our things. Like if it was more gradual, I think it would be a little easier to take, a little easier to absorb.
So just for my behind the scenes part of it, because there's probably, again, a lot of people who are eating out in restaurants don't necessarily know this. So what are your thoughts? This 48-hour notice. When I first heard about it, it made it sound like you have to have 48 hours notice to call somebody in, but essentially it's 48 hours notice to cancel.
Right.
So if someone's on a shift and all of a sudden you realize that, oh my God, we just forgot that there's a big festival this weekend, so it's on the other side of town, no one's going to be here, if you don't give them 48 hours notice, you must pay them 3 hours for a 3-hour shift. Are you finding that, I mean, I don't know, depending on how you do your scheduling, is that really going to make or break things for you, this 48-hour notice to cancel, or you are already doing this and it's not going to be that big of a deal?
Well, we definitely weren't already doing that. Yeah. Because things fluctuate in our business all the time. So it's raining today. We might be busy tonight because there's people coming in from cottages as opposed to going away to cottages, or they might not want to be spending time out at the lake because it might be a little chilly. Hey, you know what, let's go out for dinner. There's some music happening. So we may have to increase the staff. So the flip side to that is when it's, like you said, there's festivals going on. We're not giving 48 hours notice, but we have found that if we just say, hey, you know what, to a server, hey, you know what, we really don't think it's going to be crazy busy tonight. Would you like to have the night off?
Oh, asking?
Yes. So then it's a volunteer.
Yes.
You know what? Yeah, you know what? I'll take the night off. There's very few that are going to say, no, I'm going to be there and you're going to pay me my 3 hours. If they hold you to it, then, you know, you have to bring them in, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's going to be a wait and see, because I think for a lot of the servers, sometimes they're just like, yeah, I'll take the night off, sure.
And especially depending on how their last few weeks were. If they,
exactly.
if business was good, they don't mind it.
Exactly. But that's the life of a server, right? So you take the good with the bad, because they can have, they could have served a group of really good tippers the night before and kind of think, yeah, you know what, I could actually afford to take the night off. Or, yeah, you know what, some friends are having a party out in the whatever. Cooks is going to be a different story. But we don't normally call cooks off. We usually need them, no matter what. No, you know what I mean? Like, no matter what, you need your staff. So if you're going with, say, three line cooks, a dishwasher, you need them. They may end up going home at 8:30 instead of 10:30 because it's a quiet-ish night, but there's always a minimum amount of labor. I hate to refer to them as labor, but there's always a minimum amount that you need. There's just like one of those, But
if you get in a group of 20 decides to walk in that you weren't expecting, Well, like having short one server can help out or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
But if you're short in the kitchen,
Yeah.
there's a
Well,
problem.
unless you're cross-trained. So, and that's the other thing that I know that in my industry, and I, not to toot my own horn, but I have a culinary background. So, you know, if you're having a quiet Monday night and boom, you get 2 baseball teams in and 2 Frisbee football teams in, and you're down to 1 cook because it was 9:15. First of all, you're ecstatic that 40 people have just walked through your door, 45 people just walked through your door. But I just walk to the back and say, okay, this is what's happening. You let me know. I'm going to come back and I'm going to shake fries, or I'm going to put burgers together for you, or whatever. Just tell me where you need me, because I have that ability, and I think that's really important for any restaurateur to be able to.
Do you think now, that I think about cross training, I think that's fascinating. So you think there's going to be more of that happening?
Has to be.
So anyone who's only ever served forever and ever, amen, they may have to now help out with dishes when things are, and they're going to have to help out with general hostess duties, welcoming guests at the door and showing them to tables. And
well, they welcome guests at the door quite happily, because if you're going with a night that, say you've only got 4 servers on and you've sectioned them off, they all have sections, often they run for the door anyway, because they're just like, okay, I'm gonna scoop that table. And that's just the nature of the business. That won't be mind-blowing to anybody. I hope it's not. I mean, they share the wealth, but in the back of house, it's going to be more important, definitely, to have cross-trained people.
Do you think there's any benefit to servers who want to gain more experience, up their game somewhat, to get some kitchen training?
Yeah, definitely. I've worked with servers who tend to be often they're a little bit younger, or they're like single moms, and they're looking to make as much money as possible, and they'll come to me and they'll say, hey, I'll do dishes. Like, I can come in and I'll do dishes from like 10 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon. I'll go home, I'll organize my home life, and then I'll come back at 5 and serve. And I think that's fantastic. And they get a much better view of what happens in the back of house. So when a server sometimes comes on the hutch and they're waiting for some food to come up in the hot window, and they're like, oh my God, it's hot. Are you kidding me? Because isn't
that the old statement? Yeah. Right.
So because I'm one of those obnoxious managers, maybe, that I'll just look at them and really, because it's like 500 degrees back there for them. So, you gotta, but when they work back there, or when you have those unexpected nights and, somebody jumps back and does a couple of racks of dishes, the cooks are like, really? Like, that's fantastic. Thank you. So if you can promote that teamwork, if you can promote that, that kind of, the cook's coming out at the end of the night and the server's going to give them a lift home. So they put the chairs up. Like, it's sort of a tit for tat. Cross-training in my world has always been key. So not just on the line, because it's all broken down into sections. If you've got someone who can do saute, grill, and fryer convection, or you've only got someone who can work saute, well, that saute guy he's not that valuable to you. They have to go home a little bit early, because if it does get busy, he can't help out on the grill. He needs to know how to prepare a burger or a steak. So getting the front of house involved, definitely. So sometimes what we've done is, it's difficult to explain maybe, but you put your empty racks down. So instead of just piling their dishes where the dishes would normally go, they have no choice but to put them in the racks now, and then the cook just has to go back, grab that rack of dishes and put it through. They don't have to do that work. Take the extra steps. So if you're teamwork oriented, I mean, that's a no-brainer.
So that's easy to start sorting through resumes when they start coming in, right? Based on where they've been, what they've done. Yeah, I like when I look at a resume for a server or bartender and they've got some kitchen experience. I think it's fantastic. I've worked with servers who would say, oh, you couldn't pay me enough to go back in the kitchen, but they have a respect for those line cooks. And it tends to be older people too, I find, in my business, it tends to be people, full-time servers or older servers who, I mean, a whole other podcast would be work ethic in the in the younger generation, but it's that mutual respect thing. And if you go through a server resume and you see that they work 2 years in a kitchen, that's kind of cool. It is.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it is. Okay, last question. When I was in Australia, of course, good restaurants. I know. It's almost like a name dropping thing. It's like a country drop for me. So I didn't mean it, but I was using it as a build up for their minimum wage is like 17 something an hour. decent restaurants are paying $25 to $28 an hour, but there's no tipping required. So that there's only the very high-end ones where there's almost a 10%. I know that there's some in bigger centers. I think there's a restaurant in Toronto, I'm going to go try to find it, that's basically experimenting with this no tipping policy, and they just pay their servers a flat rate more. Do you see any benefit of that, or do you think that it would scare away good staff because some of the better ones are thinking, no, if I go into a tipping situation, like I know I have more control over my day? Do you think it's going to be something that's going to come, or it's going to be an experiment that may or may not go?
I don't really see that happening here. $25 to $28 an hour for a server, that's crazy to me, but
if it builds in their tips.
If it builds in their tips, but then do you think a guest would be more likely to go there because they didn't have to tip? I don't know.
This is countrywide. Nobody tips there.
Really?
Yeah.
It's hard for me to fathom that because I'm not there, right?
So there's even the machines where I go to pay my bill, there's
really?
no percentage tip button on most of them. It didn't show up until I was out for the higher end meals, and then it was, or from what I was told, that if you really, really enjoy the service, like 10% is
plenty.
Yeah.
Did you find, not to turn the tables on you, but did you find as a Canadian that was difficult for you to do, to not tip your server?
Well, because I've always I've seen both sides of it.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to tip, and I'm sure we over-tipped. Probably why we made so many friends when we were there.
There's that. I mean, no, you do. I mean, it happens here.
Yes, so. But it's because I respect what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a couple times that when there wasn't an option, I know there was one time we had a fantastic lunch, and the staff were phenomenal, but there wasn't an option for tipping. So one of the girls told me that she was just finishing her shift, so we actually bought them a drink after their shift.
See, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so so my husband went up to the bar and told the bartender, and then he said, "Can I get you a glass of wine?" Because she was busy recommending wines to us.
Yeah.
So we got her, and then her best friend who works in the kitchen was coming to. Their two of them were going out afterwards, so they got to sit at the bar and each have a glass of wine before they left. And it was interesting because the most excited person was this line cook. Nobody ever gives them a tip.
No,
Nobody ever buys them a glass of wine.
It's true.
So it's one of those things to note. Buy them alcohol if you don't want to give them cash tips. They are very happy with that, obviously. Not just in Australia, but can you imagine if that happened here?
Well, I mean, I've had guests at the bar, maybe sitting directly at the bar, saying, "Hey, you know what? Like, my bartender is really good to me. Can I buy him or her a drink?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." I mean, they can't have it till they're done, but absolutely throw that on your tab, and I think that's wonderful. And often they'll tip on top of that. But as far as the no tipping thing here, I'm going to say that I don't see it coming because I can't even. I'm trying to think if I would be able to pay $25 an hour to a server. So I honestly don't know how to. We'll be supplementing.
You were basically paying for the tips.
Yeah.
But it's also higher prices.
Right.
So there were higher menu prices there.
So obviously but see, that goes back to that minimum wage thing. Prices are going to increase, and they just have to. So is the average diner going to be willing to go out and spend $44 on an 8-ounce sirloin because now they're truly paying for everybody to do that? A long time ago, we used to have an option, and I think some people still have the option to add a gratuity to a large party or parties over 8. We did that in one of the restaurants here in Sudbury, and a lot of people just think that if it's over a certain amount of people, we're just going to add that gratuity for you. We had servers that would say, "You know what? Like, it's Christmas time. I don't want you to add the gratuity. I don't want you to go 15% on that bill because I have confidence that I'm going to create a better experience for that guest, and they're going to give me 20%. So they're willing to gamble. They're willing to gamble because, yeah, you know what? I've taken care of that party before. Yeah, let's not add the gratuity, because sometimes if you just make it easy, then the gratuity is already there, and they just say, "Oh, okay, so here's your 15%." But everybody has servers in their on their staff that consistently make, say, 20%, 25%, or depending on who the guests are coming in. You have good days and bad days, for sure. But I know of like 3 or 4 right off the top of my head that would say no, because I know that I'm going to make more. So I think it's up to the servers to create that guest experience. And I have zero problem. I'm in the business though, but I have zero problem tipping a server on a great experience. If they've recommended something to me, I've had it and it's fantastic. Even if they've recommended something to me that I didn't love, but there was nothing wrong with the dish, I still appreciate their enthusiasm.
Yes.
I still appreciate their honesty sometimes at the table. So, you know, if I say, hey, like, what's this rosé all about? And they say,
it's a little sweet for me.
I haven't tried that one. I appreciate that, you know. If they can recommend a dish to me and they sell it, there's all kinds of jokes that go around that they've never tried it. But if they can sell it, then
good for them.
Good for them, because that's part of their job, right? So I don't know if I went off.
No, it's I mean, it's still basically rewarding for the tips, right?
Yeah. So I think the gratuity, I think it's important, because they're helping create that guest experience for sure.
Me too.